everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I am Jen. This is Fundy Fridays, and here on my channel I talk about different aspects of Christian fundamentalism, American conservative politics, pop culture, gay stuff, and whatever the hell I want to talk about. And today, I don't usually do episodes about the same subject so close to the last time I did it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I just released a video about purity culture in general, and it was kind of like a, not just purity culture, but abstinence-only sex education in public schools. That kind of encompassed a lot of things, and we talked about true love waits, and why wait, and no safe way, and all kinds of other little catchy, attention-grabbing Christian organizations to get you excited about virginity. In this episode, we also talked about purity rings and silver ring thing and Disney purity rings and the politics behind all of these things and why they got so much money, and it was a whole thing. That's why it took about 2 hours. So yeah, I highly recommend my video on that. In that episode, I talked a little bit about purity balls. It's a good name. If there's one thing that purity culture peddlers love to do is actually talk about sex 24/7. So
what I hear from young ladies is there's this need for that physical touch. And from a male being, that's, I believe, the father role is.
While I was making that video, like, of course, I would go on about a million rabbit trails, right? One of them was the purity balls, and specifically, I came across a bunch of American news articles talking about Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, that he was being interviewed as a part of this news piece in Germany about taking his own daughter to a purity ball, and it was very weird, and the whole thing was in German, and nobody in any American news media that I saw actually went and had it translated, and so I was very blessed to come in contact with several Jennonites who speak fluent German and English, and we were able to work together to make actual translated subtitles. And so if you saw that video pop up on your feed kind of randomly, that's what that was about. I just wanted to have that out so people could see it because I didn't get to fully cover it in my video.
Es sieht aus wie bei einer Hochzeitszeremonie. Das Paar, innig vereint, schreitet nach vorne zum Treueschwur. Doch das hier sind nicht Braut und Bräutigam, sondern Vater und Tochter. Es ist eine befremdliche Zeremonie. 32 junge Mädchen in Brautkleidern. Auch dabei Hannah Johnson. Sie legt heute vor ihrem Vater ein Keuschheitsgelübde ab.
Hiermit verspreche ich vor Gott, mir selbst, meiner Familie, meinen Freunden, meinem zukünftigen Ehemann und meinen zukünftigen Kindern, dass ich enthaltsam bin und jungfräulich bleibe.
In einer Reinheitsverpflichtung wird dieses Versprechen sogar schriftlich besiegelt.
Es gibt Jäger und Gejagte. Wir wollen unsere Mädchen so erziehen, damit sie klug genug sind, die Wölfe da draußen zu erkennen und sich von ihnen fernzuhalten.
Hannah ist 13 Jahre alt und mitten in der Pubertät. Sie hat auf diesen Tag mit ihrer Freundin hingefiebert, wie eine Prinzessin aufgehübscht mit ihrem Vater auszugehen. Aber dafür muss sie Opfer bringen.
Ich verstehe, wie wichtig dieses Versprechen für meine Eltern ist. Sie wollen, dass ich enthaltsam bleibe. Darauf haben sie mich mein ganzes Leben lang vorbereitet. Ich weiß, dass es schwer wird, weil einfach viele Versuchungen da draußen auf mich warten. Ich bete zu Gott, dass er mir hilft.
Hannahs Eltern schotten ihre Tochter von der realen Welt ab, verlangen etwas von ihr, woran sie sich selbst früher nicht gehalten haben. Sie hatten Sex vor der Ehe, aber das soll Hannah nicht wissen.
Wir glauben, dass Gott Sex nur für die Ehe erschaffen hat. Außerhalb der Ehe ist es nicht sicher, weil es Konsequenzen hat. Deshalb sprechen wir nicht mit ihr über Verhütung, denn Sex vor der Ehe kommt einfach nicht in Frage.
Mit dieser engstirnigen Lebenseinstellung sind die Johnsons nicht alleine. Seit den 90er Jahren gibt es in den USA diese christlich-konservative Bewegung Wahre Liebe wartet. Nach einer Umfrage allerdings brechen mehr als 80% dieser unaufgeklärten Mädchen ihren Schwur, oft mit Folgen einer ungewollten Schwangerschaft. Und trotzdem.
Das Treuheitsgelübde abzulegen, wird immer beliebter. Nach einer neuesten Statistik heißt es, dass jedes 8. Mädchen mittlerweile jungfräulich in die Ehe gehen möchte.
Für Hannah ist es sogar selbstverständlich, dass ihr Vater einmal entscheidet, welchen Mann sie heiraten.
This lady is just telling it like it is, and I really appreciate it because she's not having to worry about us stupid Americans being offended by being told how weird this whole thing is.
Wenn ich mit meinen Freundinnen unterwegs bin, sehe ich jede Menge süßer Jungs. Aber ich muss mich daran erinnern, dass es mir nicht erlaubt ist, mich zu verabreden.
Ob Papas kleines Mädchen an diesem Versprechen zweifeln wird, wenn sie erst einmal verliebt ist? Vermutlich ja. So harmonisch wie hier wird dann das Vater-Tochter-Verhältnis wohl nicht bleiben.
And so it was really cool to be able to connect with members of the Jedi community who can do stuff like this, and it was just amazing to pull all that together. But anyway, long story short, I was thinking about purity balls. More members of my Discord were like, hey, have you seen The Virgin Tales, which is a documentary that came out in 2012 about Randy Wilson, Lisa Wilson, and their ministry. They kind of invented the father-daughter purity ball and popularized it.
They're called purity balls, a sacred covenant between fathers and daughters.
Choose before God to cover my daughter as her authority and protection in the area of purity.
Where dads pledge to protect their girl's purity until marriage.
We live in a consuming fire of pop culture telling our daughters that the culture has the answer and they, not you, should have the greatest influence on your daughters.
There was a whole documentary about them specifically, and so I watched it and I was like, there is enough here to make an episode about, because we're going to be talking about that documentary. We're going to be talking about Randy Wilson and his work with the Family Research Council. Longtime Jedites definitely should have their ears perking up when they hear about the FRC. So I just found a bunch of stuff and I was like, we got to talk about it. Plus I found some interviews with the director of the documentary that are really interesting. And so I was like, let's talk about it. So what are purity balls exactly? Well, technically speaking, they are formal dances that fathers and daughters attend. While white is a popular color for girls to wear because it represents purity and also kind of looks like a wedding dress, girls can wear any kind of dress they want. Also, there is usually a dinner served as well as a photo booth area. Purity balls usually cost money to attend. One that I saw hosted earlier this year cost upwards of $75 per couple, with an additional cost per daughter. Makes sense because it does take money to rent out a ballroom or a conference room, and they need to have plenty of room to do, sword stuff.
I believe that the Lord has given me desires to be married and to be a wife and a mother.
Purity balls were popularized by Randy Wilson, who created the first father-daughter purity ball in 1998. Since then, purity balls have been held in nearly all 50 states and a few abroad as well. Randy does not host purity balls anymore, but he does travel to help other groups host their own, and they sell like a packet that helps people host their own. The activities range from a rose ceremony, a key ceremony, speeches, dancing, covenant signings, and creepy little girl ballet dancers dressed in all white doing some sort of ritualistic interpretive dance around the cross.
Thank you for warning, fathers. Your presence here makes a statement. I believe the gates of hell will shake because of it.
And you've probably noticed there's an awful lot of gender role pageantry going on at these things.
It says on the document, "As the high priest in my home." What's that mean?
There is a hierarchy of levels of authority, and we believe in the home the father sits at that place.
Whether it's the aforementioned sword stuff, the creepy little girl ballet, or the key ceremony.
And so we're going to have a key ceremony just for you men. And what this represents is you are the key for these young ladies. God, you are a father. And Lord, there's nothing you take more serious than your role as a father. And Lord, thank you for this night. Thank you for these fathers. Thank you for these daughters. Thank you for what this moment represents, God. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen.
And I know it's obvious to us as outsiders that these purity balls mimic wedding ceremonies.
To others, it's going to be strange. You know, why are they having this almost like a mock wedding ceremony? I say, why not? Why not show the people? Why not show the world what you stand for? We want to push for this.
It's not just the black ties and white dresses that make it like a wedding either. It's also the vows, the rings, the rose ceremony, and the covenants made.
Take those covenants in the middle of your table. I choose before God to cover my daughter as her authority and protection in the area of purity. I will lead, guide, and pray over my daughters as the high priest in my home. There's a pen in the middle of your paper. Pick that up and sign that. And then have your daughters witness that.
But if you asked any of these dads to be self-aware and examine how weird this is, then all of a sudden they get defensive.
I don't need a boyfriend. Yeah.
It's your dad.
Yeah. I don't need a boyfriend because I have my dad that's already filled by a man.
And Jesus.
Yeah, and Jesus.
You talk about yourself as your daughter's boyfriend. That's going to have a lot of people, make an awful lot of people uncomfortable. It's way too Freudian. How do you...
See, this is what I find absolutely humorous in our culture today, where something as pure as a daddy going out with his daughter on a date is twisted to make it seem like, as you mentioned, Freudian. I wasn't thinking about Freud at all. I was thinking about having a great time with my daughter. You know, I encourage my daughters to come sit on my lap. We snuggle, we sit by the fireplace. There's absolutely nothing sexual in that whole experience.
I talked about this creepy motherfucker last time, but I'll, make sure his name is up on the screen again. When it comes to this purity ball stuff and this overbearing, creepy, patriarchal, inappropriate boundary-having families, right? Like, this came up over and over. In fact, I have another creepy clip right here.
My prayer for you is that God would bring you a young man that would have a heart like many of the men here this evening, a man of integrity, with whom you can join together, have bunches of little kids of your own. I love you, Rachel.
But I definitely think there's absolutely no way they don't know what this looks like, especially when you consider how much abuse goes on in these fundy churches and the nature of a lot of that abuse. I just don't see how they're not putting two and two together. Maybe they want to ignore it.
We were talking about who I'm going to marry someday and how excited I am to be able to have everything I have to give to him. And there was a silence for a few minutes, and then I just came out and said, Mommy, I want my guy to be just like Daddy. And I really do, because my dad is just the sweetest, best, most reliable man in the world. Thank you, Dad.
I think it needs to be said because this is absolutely not normal behavior and nobody should be emulating it. And I just wanted to say all this shit is creepy.
If my life and what we're sharing with people is so bizarre, why am I so in love with my wife? Why have we had 30 amazing years of marriage? Why do my kids all love one another and love us? I think you have to look at that.
Father, I pray a covering for them. Father, protect them as they go. For each one of these daughters, godly men that you will bring.
And if they wanted to spend more time with their daughters, they can do it in a non-creepy way by, having hobbies, doing sports, bird watching, I don't know, any number of things. They knew exactly why this was going to be sensational, and I think they're eating it up.
To know that you are so loved and valued that your father would plan maybe for months, maybe a year, to go to an event like this gives an expression of extraordinary worth in the heart of that young woman. And it sets the standard for her from that night forward that this is how she should expect to be treated by the men in her life.
Just the affirmation. And how am I doing, Dad? And am I beautiful? That's a question that I think every girl wants answered. Am I beautiful? And Dad's there to give me that affirmation. Otherwise, I would be floundering, going, hanging on every guy, being like, okay, am I pretty? Am I beautiful? Am I worth pursuing? And that's Dad's role in my life.
Look, I get it. The Wilsons love their kids, and they want the best for them, and they don't want them to just, date random dudes. I get it. But this family just keeps getting weirder. Case in point, the weekly blessing ceremony that Randy does with his kids.
And also as you walk with Chad, your husband, whose name means warrior, and he is that. The Lord bless you and keep you. Lord, make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you and give you peace. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Thank you.
Love you. Jordan, you are beautiful, a mighty woman of God as well, a princess in God's kingdom. Your name means flowing river, compassionate flower, and that is everything that you are. A heart full of compassion to those around you and for those around you, and to bring God's compassion into your generation and communicate that to those that God brings across your path for his glory. Lord bless you and keep you. Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you and turn his face towards you and give you peace. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
But there are other purity balls that are not Wilson affiliated, or at least I don't think they are. Abstinence Clearinghouse has a kit that you can buy to put on your own purity ball. They also do a Night to Remember, which is a son and mother purity thing. And then there's also Mommy, Me, and Jesus Tea. And I can't believe I forgot to mention this last time, but Vision Forum, which was a group that was kind of like IBLP. They did homeschooling and gender. They were real big on the gender stuff. A little too much. They have since shut down because the founder, Doug Phillips, is a sex criminal. They would have these events, and one of them was like a purity ball, and they would get these little girls in their little white dresses, and then they would shave daddy. Yeah, that's a big thing. Learning to be a little helpmeet so you can take care of your future husband by learning to do it with your dad. And I did not make any of that up. And if you know, you know.
Yeah, so I am really trying to embrace that aspect of God's design, but just in the people around me. So I have a dad, I have brothers, I have men around me in my church, and I am really striving to have kind of a humble, kind of a servant's mindset in my heart, because I naturally want to push against that. But when I embrace it and when I have that humble servant's mindset of helping others, of helping my dad, practicing that, helping my brothers, it really is so beautiful and it works really well. So I would say to the single girls that you can practice it, whether it's within your own family, whether it's at church, just wherever you are, you really can practice that with the men around you.
Yeah, Vision Forum was rotted. Vision Forum was horrible. I have a couple videos about Vision Forum. The one I recommend the most is my video about the Botkins, which were Vision Forum's royal family, and lots of good stuff in that episode. They like to dress up in like historical clothing and put on these balls, and their dad's like this, like he looks like a supervillain, and he's got this suit he wears where the shoulders are like at 90-degree angles, and he's real creepy. And yeah, anyway, Go watch that video. It's great. But lots of purity balls going on. They kind of fell out of popularity with the pandemic, although I can imagine that crowd probably is not the type that really care about social distancing. So if they were to ever have a resurgence in popularity, purity balls, I mean, would not surprise me, especially now because a lot of conservatives and like people who are really into that patriarchal stuff are like, we're sticking it to the culture, and like they think they're super rebellious and like they're making a stand, you know? So I could see there being a resurgence in popularity of purity balls. You may have seen something called Pure, which is from the Into the Dark anthology horror series, and episode 12 was called Pure, and it was about purity balls, and it's like really spooky. I watched it a long time ago. I don't remember much about it, but yeah, they came out in 2019, and yeah, I think it's interesting that somebody made a horror story about purity balls because they are horrifying and they are scary. And it kind of is like, yeah, why wouldn't you? It has everything that other horror movies have. Little girls in white dresses, creepy dads. It's like a Gwen Shamblin vibe. It's scary. Yeah, I don't see why not.
Y'all just want your dads to love us. This is not love.
Some people out there say that we try to control our women. We love our women.
Like most things that are horrifying, sometimes you can find humor in the trauma. And so I also recommend the episode of American Dad called My Purity Ball and Chain. Stan Smith gets his son Steve Smith involved in a purity group because he doesn't want to talk to him about sex. It's like an actual real life situation. So instead of teaching him about sex, he gets him involved in this purity group, and then they go to a purity ball, and like it's exactly like the Virgin Tales, down to the coming of age son trying to impress his dad, to the sword stuff. I mean, they make some jokes that maybe that I wouldn't make on my channel, but they definitely hint at how creepy and weird these dads are towards their daughters.
No, I was the one with the problem. I was so worried I might screw you up that I got you involved in this craziness, and it screwed you up even worse.
Come on, Stan. Everybody's getting freaky out here.
Enough of this. Shannon, your dad's a creep.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they learn their lesson and do better. I can't say that for the subjects of today's episode.
Take it into that's a dangerous world by saying, well, the kids are going to do it anyway. So make sure they all have condoms and they protect themselves. But again, you look at research, scientific research, and the condoms weren't really that much of a protection. And so if you go the route of abstinence, there's 100% protection there for the children. So let's learn how to make good choices.
How many times have you seen a fundamentalist say something like, we're not anti-sex, we think sex is great. God created sex. It's supposed to be the most amazing thing, and you're only supposed to do it within the confines of marriage.
The most incredible gift God could give a man and woman is the act of sex in marriage. It's absolutely glorious and wonderful. And have fun, enjoy it. It's phenomenal. It's a blast. It's incredible. That's what I tell them.
They're trying to be fake sex positive so that people don't think that they are sheltering their children too much or educationally neglecting them. But what ends up happening is they get so obsessed with, oh, well, you'll just have to find out about how hot and sexy sex is after you're married, that it just makes everyone uncomfortable, including the children and the camera crew and also everyone on Earth.
You give sex education to your children?
Before my girls were married, we had just had the most wonderful talks. I mean, we would laugh and they would, it was just wonderful. Like, oh, wait until you just won't even believe, it's unbelievable, fireworks, oh my goodness. And we still laugh about that. And so my daughter Jordan is waiting. She's like, can't wait to have that talk. So, well, I guess you have to meet somebody first.
You know, they're going to be the first ones to say, oh, I'm not anti-sex, me and my hot wife, all that.
I wanted to save my first kiss for the altar. But I know that's radical, but that's something I wanted to do. And that was my choice.
What was that kiss like?
Oh, electric, phenomenal. Oh my gosh.
Sex is seen as, a carrot dangling on a string. It's a reward. Sometimes There's some objectification at play. You start hearing about, well, your wife's purity, your wife's virginity, your wife's genitals. They're your property if you're the husband.
Jordan. She's never kissed a boy and won't until her wedding day.
Save myself for that one man so that I can give myself to him only.
All right, well, let's have some tea.
It's just purely his and his alone for the rest of my life. That, to me, is full strength. I mean, that is the way that I think is the best way to live, just to save yourself.
You are to submit to him. You are one flesh. You are to save all of your hedonistic, disgusting, perverted sexual urges. You're supposed to save them and then kind of make them your wife's problem.
I've watched you do that very well, to turn away. No, a wife is a gift from God Almighty. He will bring you your Eve. God bless you in that pursuit.
Whereas when you think about what the girls go through in purity culture, submission and you're your husband's property and, you know, make sure you pick a good one because you can't get divorced.
Oh, we long for men to be men. We are desperate for manly men to lead in a way that is healthy and honoring to women.
It's all about chastity, obedience.
I believe we women were created to need the strength of the man.
And purity.
We are too valuable to simply give ourselves away to young men who would not treat us with great respect, honor, and worth.
It's all about women learning to follow men.
And the man will be the leader of the household.
Yes, yes.
They're also getting messages of, or start out as this pure white clean vessel, and then you get dirtied through sexual acts and sometimes even sexual thoughts or lust or masturbation of any kind makes you impure, and any person that you get with, you know, you have a soul tie to, and you're chewed gum and all that stuff. That's really heavy, and that would be hard for anyone to go through and have this manipulated warped view of what sexuality is supposed to be. Plus, if you're a teenager or young adult, sometimes they start middle school, sometimes they start younger with this messaging. So they really are getting messages from all over the place, whether it be the media that they consume, their friends at school, if they go to school, church, parents, I mean, even their own siblings are going to be kind of riffing on what they know. And if you don't know anything, that's where you start thinking these really inaccurate things about body parts and consent and everything. It just gets all twisted because a lot of times they aren't even teaching them real sex ed. They're saying, we'll either tell you when you're about to get married, or we're going to tell you that only this really specific way is okay.
Do you ever feel like you're missing out?
I don't. I mean, I look at my siblings' lives and they come home with their spouses and it's wonderful, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait.
The whole thing is just so messed up, and there's not really better ways to describe it. The way they talk about sex is not in a way that is of a healthy outlook, and they don't teach their kids literal facts about their own body or their rights or how they should be treated besides daddy has to approve him. Plus, the way they equate purity with morality. Basically, if you mess up at all, then that means you're a bad person.
It's a complete wholeness of a woman.
A lot of these parents will withhold love from their children, or they will say that they're disappointed in them if they do this, if they mess up.
Would you be disappointed if one of your girls did end up having sex before marriage?
I think it would make us sad.
If they do something that is actually very normal and healthy and a part of growing up, they tell them that they're disappointed in them. They imply that they don't love them because of this.
If she were to make mistakes, how would you feel? I would be disappointed.
And while I can't say for sure about Father God over here. What I can confirm by observing the Wilsons in their various documentaries is that they place a lot of pressure to conform on their daughters. And when you build marriage and motherhood up as a young woman's sole purpose in life, it creates a toxic environment. And in the Virgin Tales, we see that demonstrated clearly with daughter Jordan, who is in that awkward stage of not a girl, not yet a woman. Because she is an unmarried stay-at-home daughter, she feels so much pressure from everyone around her to live a certain way while she also is still trying to figure out her own life. It's really tough.
Hello. It is 1 o'clock on Tuesday. It's been a while since I've recorded. I pondered for a while this morning, just took a lot of time just to think and pray for my future husband and just ask the Lord to bring him soon, because I would love to be in a relationship right now. But tonight is the last Purely Woman study with all of my girls. Just talk about weddings and fun stuff like that, because, you know, we're girls.
Yeah, that Purely Woman thing is kind of like a ministry that Jordan and her sisters put on. They have books and they give talks at conferences. They also put on classes called School of Grace. And so in these classes, Jordan and her sisters teach other young women how to be pure, how to be a good party host, how to smile even though you're dead inside.
But you'd be surprised how many people I've run into or have welcomed into my home who do not know how to smile. When we were younger, growing up, my mom would have us practice in front of a mirror. Okay, what does it look like when you're smiling? What does it look like when you're happy, but you're not smiling? You know, you could be perfectly contented, but still look like something's wrong.
Unfortunately, these Purely Woman parties were not just about baking tips and gossip. They were also really disturbing lessons from young Jordan on how to cover your various parts of your body when you're, say, bending over. And it's just really unfortunate that they're so used to being objectified and so used to having that scrutiny on their bodies at such a young age that this is normalized and no one bats an eye.
Bending over, like at a drinking fountain. You know, it's very unattractive. If I were to bend over like this and my rear end stuck in the air for everyone to see. It's not graceful, it's not elegant at all. So whether I'm in jeans or a dress, I always try and bend like this at the knee. Try not to draw attention to yourself. Also, bending over to get something off a table or something, depending on the shirt that you're wearing, whether it's one that gapes or one, if it's closer to the neck, that's not usually a problem. But just gracefully, you know, put your hand here. We all struggle with letting your mind go. That's why it's so important to guard your eyes and to guard your heart.
Seriously, these girls are under such pressure to keep sweet, and they get into situations that seem like to an outsider that they would be actively dangerous because they don't really have a choice in the matter. They're doing what their parents tell them to do. For example, Christian, Jordan's sister, is going to tell the story of how she met her husband. And basically, he saw a picture of her, thought she was hot, got her dad's email, and then kind of arranged to be in a relationship with her.
In April of last year, an email comes in to my father. And Mom comes down the stairs and she's like, girls, an email. She's like, Chris, you gotta read this. But it's this young man in Alaska. He's a captain in the Army. And he got my dad's email address from friends. And he got back from a tour in Iraq and was back at their home and saw our family picture on the side of their refrigerator. But this email was like, hey, you don't know me, but I would like to ask permission to write your daughter, Christian. So we started emailing, and 6 days into emailing, he called my dad, and he asked to fly down from Alaska to meet my family. So 4 weeks later, Mom, Dad, and I drive to Colorado Springs Airport, and I'm standing there, he's about to come around a corner, and I am flipping out. And he came around the corner and just swept off my feet. He was wearing jeans and a brown polo and a duffel bag over his shoulder and the most drop-dead smile.
Yeah, her husband's name is Chad, and, well, he's a real Chad.
Ladies, I wanted to tell you tonight that I saved my very first kiss for this amazing man, my husband, Chad.
This is my first purity ball, but I do have a unique perspective because I'm married to the daughter of the founder. Yeah. We see, unfortunately, two extremes in our culture. The one extreme is either distant or non-existent fathers, and the other extreme is controlling or even abusive fathers. And obviously, neither of those is a safe place. That's right. Your relationship with your daughter is a blueprint, an example of her relationship with whatever young man comes to court her.
They're training these girls to be obedient helpmeets to their husbands by having them practice with their family. And Chad just said that how their fathers treat them is going to be reflective of the type of man that they end up with, which is strange to say the least.
Daughters out there, just want to encourage you that there are men out there who are saving themselves just for you. In fact, one of them is right here. His name's Logan Wilson.
Like, why did you have to call him out like that?
I must totally blush when Chad called me out.
Something I really appreciate about this documentary is that they show a lot more of what happens with the young boys' side of purity culture than most media I've ever seen. And that's not to say that it doesn't exist. It's not covered very often. It's interesting because they also get weird about the masculinity, and sometimes it shows up in their obsession with knighthood and protecting their own damsel in distress and military and war language. What I'm about to show you is a clip of Logan, the youngest son, having a literal manhood ceremony. Like, that's what they wrote on the invitations and everything.
Nowadays, it is not very popular to speak about specifically Christianity or religion in terms of warfare and fighting. It's becoming increasingly unpopular, in fact. But to bring order to chaos, you need courage, you need leadership, and sometimes you need to fight. And that's how it is.
The manhood ceremony is where my dad calls together all his good friends, men of God who fear God, who shun evil, who do battle like my dad. He calls them together and they give me advice, and they call me into manhood because now I'm a man and I have to fight for my own heart to keep myself pure. Wow. Thank you, sir.
And of course, Randy loves to say the quiet part out loud, so he informs Logan that, you know, if he stays pure long enough, he will be rewarded with a wife.
And I've watched you do that very well, to turn away. No, a wife is a gift from God Almighty. He will bring you your Eve. God bless you in that pursuit. Welcome into manhood.
He's all grown up now and hosting masculinity retreats, and oh my God, is that somebody dressed as George Washington? I'm telling you, this whole thing is reminding me of the Botkins. They love to dress up. They love to, and it's like totally earnest. This is not ironic. Like, he's in a freaking Roman, whatever you would call that costume. And, oh God, trying to be a revolutionary. I need to know, whoa, I need to know where this guy was on January 6th. I am dead serious. Yeah, there's Randy. When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and something heavenly it's a war room shirt. Hashtag I packed a shoebox. So they're all representing different Christian thingies. Like this guy's doing, put the name of it on the screen. It's Operation Christmas Child, Jen. Chad Lewis, that's his brother! And I only know that because I watched the documentary. School of Honor invites you to begin a hero's journey. They love that hero's journey stuff. Merch? What's this? What's this? School of Honor, and it's got a cross. No. It's a cross with a sword and a rose. Sword over a Bible and rose. Back blank. About the class. Host one. Should we host one, guys? 3-day summer course designed to transform today's young boys into tomorrow's great men. From the honor of God and the Hebrew names of God to civility and chivalry to our Ephesians 6 spiritual weapons and armor, this one-of-a-kind course delivers timeless and critical truths to boys as they enter manhood. The 200-page manual that each young man receives during the course is an engaging and fast-paced curriculum of captivating history, inspiring men of courage, and deep biblical study, written and completed by Logan Wilson. Logan also delivers powerful, dramatic presentations in costume and soundtrack of some of history's most courageous, influential, God-fearing men that keep the boys on the edge of their seats. Students learn the chivalrous skills of how to treat young women, how to be a gentleman, and other courtesies. Dramatic presentations of men of honor in history are delivered each day, and the afternoon ends with outdoor games. Parents and family are invited to the graduation ceremony for the mission statement of honor that the young men will declare together. Each student received a signed certificate of completion. Married to Brianna, lives in Colorado with the 2 children. Started the School of Honor at 17. When he saw our culture was degrading and emasculating the strength of men. Logan is an author and certified life coach. Logan has presented across the United States for Family Research Council. Yep, I bet you have. Republican policy events, Christian schools, churches, camps, and radio, and has been featured in the International Power for Living magazine for Cook Communications. He loves to inspire young men to passionately pursue God through their masculine design. Young men will bring their own food. Are their wives gonna make it for them? Their mommies. General information. Depending on how far I need to travel, I need a minimum of 20 to 50 young men. Where will this be held? This is usually in someone's home, depending on how many the hostess feels she can accommodate. A place for me and 2 to 3 interns to stay. Cost will be discounted for host sons. Here's what they need for the class, okay? 45-minute sessions with break. Video clips, several stories, TV with HDMI. That's important. Dressed up uniform, dramatic presentations. Obviously, I can tell you guys like to wear costumes. 1.5 lunch break, frisbee, any activities that the boys usually end up doing. The boys. This leather wristband, are you shitting me? I could buy the book. I don't need it. I don't need it. I have to actively tell myself I do not need to buy this fundy crap. $25? Dude. Logan is not the only son featured in the Virgin Tales. The Wilsons' oldest son is actually named Colton, and he got married right out of homeschool just like his sisters did. And I can't even get mad at him for it, because there's not really any other prospects for these kids. And with sexual purity being at the forefront of everyone's mind 24/7, of course they're in a rush to get married. And they want the freedom it provides. They want to start their own lives. And with the pressure from literally everyone in their lives to remain pure, marriage is really pushed as the solution to all of these problems. But what happens when you marry somebody that you barely know?
I think there were a lot of surprises in the first year of marriage. We thought we knew each other pretty well, and you kind of realize that I don't really know you that well at all. The point of this life is to obey God and to love Him. And because I love God, I love my husband, regardless of whether or not I have feelings of affection for him in a given moment. The command to love him is just that. It's a command. And I do it because, well, I do love him and I do have feelings of affection for him. But in times when that wanes, we look to our covenant, that before God we made a covenant that we would honor one another and remain in marriage with one another until we die. And it's not determined by whether or not we feel warm fuzzies towards each other in a given year, month, day. That's not what sustains our marriage. It's the marriage that sustains our love.
These poor kids never stood a chance. And I'm sure it's of no surprise, but the Wilsons homeschool, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I think once you see what Lisa is teaching, you might think, maybe they shouldn't use that in the curriculum.
Because you are my chosen princess, you should dress modestly every day. Sadly, there are a lot of girls that don't think about me when they get dressed in the morning. They wear clothes that do not cover their bodies or that show their bodies in an immodest way. Keep your body covered and be my model.
Homeschooling has become much more mainstream in the United States. When I started it 22 years ago, there weren't very many women, or I didn't know of women that were doing it, but I just felt very strongly that my curriculum and the educational choices that I would make for my children would be based on our faith. We would start with the Word of God first, choosing books and the literature and the history and the math and the science based on and not fighting against our understanding of the Word of God. Right. The knight in shining armor. There's another silent letter.
K-N-I-G-H-T.
Very good.
Speaking of homeschooling, did you know that Randy Wilson frequently speaks at homeschooling conferences? And seeing as how he works for the Family Research Council, he is heavily involved in politics. And so, you know, we should really be paying attention to the crazy shit that he says.
John Adams said that our Constitution is designed only for a moral and religious people, and it is wholly inadequate for any other people. 62, prayer was tossed out of our schools by not a legislative decree. 63, the Bible was thrown out as a text. No-fault divorce was passed in California in 1971, spread across the country like a wildfire. Then the homosexual agenda was unleashed on our culture in 1982, and here we go. Boom, 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 boom. Where's the voice on this? To say, whoa, stop this. This is not right. This is not who we are as a people.
According to Wikipedia, the FRC is an American evangelical 501c3 nonprofit activist group and think tank with an affiliated lobbying organization. The FRC promotes what it considers to be family values. It opposes and lobbies against access to pornography, embryonic stem cell research, abortion, divorce, and LGBT rights, such as anti-discrimination laws, same-sex marriage, same-sex civil unions, and LGBT adoption. The FRC has been criticized by media sources and professional organizations, such as the American Sociological Association, for using anti-gay pseudoscience to falsely conflate homosexuality and pedophilia, and to falsely claim that the children of same-sex parents suffer from more mental health problems. The FRC was formed in the United States in 1981 by James Dobson and incorporated in 1983. In the late 1980s, the FRC officially became a division of Dobson's main organization focused on the family. After an administrative separation, FRC became an independent entity in 1992. Tony Perkins is the current president, and the FRC is affiliated with a lobbying PAC known as FRC Action, of which Josh Duggar was the executive director from 2013 until 2015. So yeah, that might be where you've heard of the FRC before. Tony Perkins is the current president. He is also problematic for a many number of reasons. Him and Jerry Boykin and occasionally Randy Wilson are always doing the most when it comes to the Family Research Council, and I don't really have time to get into everything they've ever done wrong, and so how about I ask for a rain check and we do a Family Research Council episode one day. What do you think?
Listen, Mike Johnson, he's a good father. He's a Christian man. He's a Christian father. He's a Christian husband. Why does the fact of him living out his Christian faith drive the left so mad?
Well, they can't control him. Imagine if we had a nation of faithful men like Mike Johnson.
What does it say about a society when promoting a biblical ethic of sexual purity is considered extreme, while pushing sexual deviance upon our children is not?
We should probably restart this whole purity ball movement. I think as time went along and others started these purity balls in their hometowns as well, we kind of got sidetracked by that purity movement because they were then calling for the daughters to pledge that they would be virgins till marriage. Well, that's a terrible place to go to. But the media jumped on that, and that's what this became all about. We've got to back up. We got to set the record straight so we might have a strong culture again, not driven by the whims of the sexualized culture, but by men of integrity, just like Mike Johnson.
This documentary follows Randy Wilson all the way to Washington, D.C. as he does work for the Family Research Council. Here he is with his group singing God Bless America. I forgot that the lyric is white with foam. I don't know why that's so funny to me. White with foam.
The goal of this conference is for pastors to be reminded of their role and how they speak about our history, who we are as a people.
Everybody in D? I see a sign over there. D.
So my role is to engage the pastors, to build relationship with them, just providing encouragement for them to be courageous in speaking the truth.
Our First Amendment says, no, this is who we are, this is what we can do and should do. So it's a responsibility issue, a stewardship issue for me.
When they say, we're just supposed to preach the gospel, we're not supposed to be involved in politics. And, that's where we can have a dialogue. And I say, no, in our country, you're leaders in that world. There is no separation of church and state, which is the big debate in this country.
The group that Randy Wilson is talking about is Watchmen on the Wall, which is a ministry to pastors from the makers of the Family Research Council. And they basically radicalize pastors into becoming far-right theocrats.
Wherever a pastor standing for righteousness is attacked or challenged, that pastor will not stand alone. I give you my word. Watchmen pastors will stand with you. So I invite you to join this rapidly expanding band of brothers. Become a Watchman pastor. In the words of the Apostle Paul from Ephesians 6, when you've prayed, prepared, and when you've taken your stand, by all means, keep standing. And know this, the Watchman Pastors Network will be standing with you.
In the Virgin Tales, they actually include a clip from Watchmen on the Wall from back in the day, and I don't think they added anything to it. I think it was just like that.
Watchmen on the walls of a nation. God knows there's impending danger. The enemy is coming, and the watchman was designed to watch carefully, night and day, and whatever they saw, they were to announce, so that God's people would know how to respond. What if God were saying, and I believe he is, I've set watchmen on your walls, O America.
All in all, I think The Virgin Tales was an awesome documentary. I learned so much from it, and I really appreciated the raw portrayal of a family that, yes, has its problems, but ultimately loves each other. And so that reminded me of a segment from a Q&A with the director, Miriam von Arx.
I think that's really the strength of the Wilsons as protagonists, that some things you just, as you commented as well, some things they do really well, and we have to think about, is everything so great the way we do it? I think it's a really tight-knit family, and I honestly think they really do love each other, very much so. They're very tight. I mean, it gets to the point where, the family almost, breaks down whenever someone gets married and moves out. Like Kaylin, the smallest one, she usually walks behind the bride, sobbing like crazy, because she knows that means that now her biggest sister is moving out again.
Did you catch that little bit at the end? That the youngest daughter gets super sad when her older sisters move out, when they get married. And yes, that is a very normal part of life, and that's probably going to happen to anybody. But it reminded me of how the Duggars do things, and how in these big families you have a lot of parentification and inappropriate familial boundaries. Something else that the Wilsons do that reminds me of the Duggars is their siblings as best friends philosophy, which encourages siblings to tattle on each other. They also reinforce the social rules and reinforce that peer pressure for them to stay in line.
And when you think about it, it makes sense, because that's their whole world. They get school at home. Their siblings are their best friends. They're all the other children they sort of have contact with are just part of the church. So that's all they know. if that is your whole world, you know, it's going to be really tough if you have a fallout with your siblings because there's no one else to talk to. So I think, and also by reassuring each other constantly that they're doing the right thing, I think they do make it easier, you know, to stick with the program.
The Virgin Tales came out in 2012, and it was directed by Swiss filmmaker Miriam von Arx. She actually filmed this movie over 2 years, and she filmed it with the help of 2 other women, and being an all-woman crew actually helped them kind of break down some barriers when it came to filming.
I think it was hard enough for them to see us as a completely all-female crew walk into their house, which was a decision I had taken. I wanted to work with all women. It was a brilliant decision because I had the best crew ever. Yeah, they were brilliant. But I originally wanted to do that because I felt it gives us a lot more freedom. We can go to the bedrooms and everything. But what was a really good side effect was like that we walked in there, and one of the daughters looked at us and said like, I didn't know that a woman could be a camera woman.
And finally, we learned from this Q&A the reason why the documentary is called The Virgin Tales.
What is really smart, and I had no idea that that worked like that, is that they're not promoting or making a stand against sex. They're not saying like, oh, you know, sex is really bad and you shouldn't have sex. They're actually doing quite the opposite. They say sex is the greatest thing on earth if you have it with the right person, if you have it with your husband. And so they create this fairy tale. That's the reason why we called the film Virgin Tales, because they really do create this sort of fairy tale setup for the not even only the girls, also the boys, to make them want to stay with the program because the payoff is so big.
Well, that was the Virgin Tales for you. Basically, the whole thing ends with another purity ball and Jordan talking about how she wants to get married. And I'm here to tell you that she did get married. Yay!
Randy's daughter, Jordan, is attending with her new husband. She says the first time she ever kissed anyone was a few months ago, in church, on her wedding day.
Okay, I have to admit that when I kissed my husband on my wedding day, it was not the first time.
It's weird that you said that.
What is it like when it's the first time?
It was just like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. And in front of everyone, it was a little like, okay, you can't mess up on a kiss. You know exactly where the lips are, and so you just plan it on it.
But come on, did you worry a little bit? What if we're not compatible? I mean, everybody doesn't kiss the same way.
No.
No, none of that.
Nope, I didn't.
So you guys aren't worried about that either? No. You figure whoever you pick is that's gonna be fine. It'll take care of itself.
Everybody's a great kisser. Come on. Everyone knows how to kiss.
That was extremely awkward. I wish that people would not ask questions to children like that. Jordan now also has an account called Slow with Joe, where she teaches people how to dress stylishly and thrift for clothes and repurpose their clothes and like generally tries to like reduce waste. And she's doing something that it seems to really make her happy. So like that's amazing. She was even on a local news program talking about this.
Okay, and so that's kind of a mock-up of what a closet consultation, of course yours would be much more intensive going to someone's home.
Exactly.
But that's kind of what the experience would be like, and we wanted to set an example of that.
Yep.
And you do all the measurements and stuff when you get to the home.
I do. I have them send me their measurements before, so I go in knowing what their body type is.
Okay.
And then I talk to them about, here's your body type, here's what to avoid, here's what to wear. Now let's shop your closet. Let's see what works for you. Put this on, put this on. They try on a million outfits. And then we come up with about 20 to 25 outfit combinations from what's already in their closet. Most women, they have clothes that are just collecting dust and they haven't worn. They need someone to help them style them.
It's so true.
Yeah, so I do that. I work with minimal closets, really big closets. I worked with a closet that we had to basically start from scratch. And I was like, you get to start over, it's so fun. And here's what you need to look for. We got to define the waist. She was an inverted triangle shape as well. Define the waist, minimize the shoulders, add balance to the bottom. So that's what I do.
And then once you go through that consultation, from that point on, the client kind of knows moving forward what to look for.
Exactly. She's not wasting her time anymore.
Or money.
Shopping all of the trends. Right.
Right.
So yeah, you're not wasting time or money. You know exactly what to look for. You can be efficient in and out. I know this works, this works, this works, and there you go.
I did find all the other sisters on Instagram, and I'm not going to show them just because they had really small accounts, but if you know what you're looking for, you could easily find them. I'm pretty sure Jordan wants to be found because of her stylist business, and when it comes to Sister Christian here, she and her husband started a school, so yeah, I think she needs to have an online profile. Christian and her husband started an Acton Academy, which I would describe as an alternative education program thing. They're called Acton Academies, and anyone can start one. They are usually one room, and in Christian's case, they're at a church, but are religiously neutral. They're kind of like schools, but the kids teach themselves.
We don't have teachers. We decided we only wanted guides. So any adult that's in the room, we have a lever of control that you are not allowed to give lectures. You are not allowed to answer questions, or basically you'll be fired, because we really want to push that envelope. We want to push it further than any model I've ever seen, really.
That's the wrap up. Highly recommend The Virgin Tales. It's free on YouTube. Every time I saw this guy, Randy Wilson, depicted in these news programs, they just talked about the purity balls, which are very interesting and very like I'm glad that people talk about that and glad people focus on that. But I didn't know that he was such a prolific dude at the FRC, and like didn't know that was lurking behind all the purity ball stuff, huh? Culture's fucked up. Purity balls are weird. It makes everyone feel ashamed of their bodies. It makes them feel ashamed about healthy, normal sexual interactions. It does not teach them about their bodies. It does not teach them about consent. It can fuck up people's lives. It can make them not have sex after they're married even. It can make them have all kinds of horrible problems and situations, and it's just not good. And I wish that we wouldn't do it. And I wish that creepy dads wouldn't do fake marriage ceremonies with their children and promise to protect their virginity. And also, what's with the swords? What's with the swords? I got lots of good stuff coming up in the fall. Finally, summer's over. I hate summer. All my homies hate summer. Time for fall. We got lots of good stuff coming up. I'm turning the hamster wheels. I'm working on something with the new wave of internet trad wives. I'm going to talk about Plathville. We're going to talk about Project 2025. We're going to talk about Kanakuk, this Christian sports camp in southern Missouri that's Native American themed. It's not really. It's racist. They're racist. And they have like a lot of sex crimes, and they conceal it, and they let abusers live there, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, all that's coming up. Very exciting. If you want to support our channel, we have Patreon and YouTube memberships, $1 and $3 tiers. They do the exact same thing. One's just cheaper than the other. You get to pick what you want to pay or nothing. Once again, if you don't have any money and you want to still support us, leave a comment, like, share, subscribe. Consensually smash the like and subscribe button. Also have merch. Lots of good stuff. Funky Fridays, Overweight Sexually Broken Loser, Deconstruction, God Loves You in a Gay Way, Ray Comfort, Kirk Cameron, funny one. It's all good. It's all good. I love you guys, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.